I'm Ed Larson, Divisional Merchandise Manager for the Hunting Division for Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. You know, I've been hunting turkeys for over 30 years, and one of my most enjoyable aspects of this job is being a part of the product selection process and the product development process. You know, as a passionate turkey hunter, you know, mouth calling, we would say, is one of the most advanced, or the most advanced turkey calling style that you can do, but it's also one of the most effective, arguably the most effective way to call turkeys. And I will say, and this just isn't a sales pitch, but buying multiple calls to try different ones out as you're getting started is always a great idea. A lot of calls are sold in 3-packs or 2-packs or 4-packs just to kind of get a couple to choose from to play with and learn. But you know, some of the big differences in mouth calls really is the number of reeds, the reed material, and then the aggressiveness of the cuts in the mouth calls. And just kind of talk about those things as well. So you think about the different cuts in mouth calls. So you've got calls that you always notice that on the very top reed that some of the material's been removed, it's been sliced from call to call. Some have very little or no cuts in them at all. And what those cuts do is they create what we call rasp. Right? So rasp is that kind of that gravelly sound that a hen turkey makes when she's yelping. And the more aggressive the cuts in the call, the raspier that call becomes. So, you know, for me, when I select a mouth call, I like a call that's kind of got a moderate amount of rasp or a moderate amount of cuts. So a choice for me would be a cutter style call like this. So if you can notice, it's got, you know, kind of a little sliver taken out on the right side and then a slice up on the left side. I'll let you hear what that rasp sounds like. But I guess when I select a call, you know, I prefer this style of cut, but I will buy 2 or 3 of the same call. I might buy some different brands as well that are cut similarly just to see what sounds best and fits best in my mouth. And then it's important that when you get a turkey call or a mouth call like this, that take the time to fit it comfortably to your mouth. So these calls have an aluminum frame in them. The majority of these calls, everything we've got on the shelf at Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's has got an aluminum frame. So don't be afraid to bend that slightly so it fits the contour of the roof of your mouth so it's comfortable. And then we also, you know, recommend, you know, very carefully that you can trim this tape as well around the outside. If it's gagging you or not fitting comfortably, go ahead and trim that tape slightly to make that call fit comfortable in your mouth. And you'll see a lot of turkey callers when they're running a mouth call, they'll have their hand up by their face and they'll be doing different stuff. And what they're doing when their hand's up by their face is they're trying to direct that sound different directions. So if a turkey's coming in, and let's say he hangs up or he stops like at 100 yards or out of effective range of your shotgun, a lot of hunters will turn their body and they'll cup their hand and they'll make that sound like that hen's walking away to try to get that tom to come a little closer. So a lot of versatility in a mouth call. So again, the basic sounds that you'll want to do on a turkey call are the yelp, the cluck, the cut, which is a very close cousin to the cluck, the purr, and then the cackle are the ones that I do the most. There's also calls, like one that's called the tree call, which is the call that a turkey makes when she's first waking up in the morning. It's a very soft yelp, just waking up on the limb, makes a very soft yelp before she does a fly down cackle. There's lots of vocalizations that turkeys make, but those are the most common. So what I'll do is I'll start with a basic tree yelp, kind of walk through what that cadence sounds like. So a hen waking up on the limb and just real soft yelps and soft clucks. And then she'll do what's called a fly down cackle when she comes off the limb. And then once she's on the ground, she'll do some assembly yelps and more aggressive yelps, and then get into some cutting and cackling. And then when a turkey goes and starts feeding, they'll do what's called that purr. And I'll show you what that sounds like too. So this will be the tree call of a hen. Generally what we tell people to do when you first get one, put it in your mouth, press the fat part of your tongue, because the tip of your tongue, it'll tickle and be uncomfortable, but the fat part of your tongue, and say the word chick or chuck. So it's chick, 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 chick. And the CH is forcing the pressure of your tongue up against these reeds, which is making the sound. And the UCK on the backside of the ICK on chick, that CK sound, causes your tongue to kind of drop off and cut the sound off. And that, I'll just give you what that sounds like. I made a slight bend to this call. I've got the horseshoe facing out and I've got my cut reed up. So I'll put that in my mouth and say chick and then chuck. And again, the first step, get comfortable. The second step is just make noise. Who cares? And if you're married or you live with others, you might want to give them a heads up or ask them to leave, because sometimes it's not the most pleasant sound for certain people. But yeah, so once you've kind of got the call making sounds, again, the pressure from the CH, that when your tongue is pressed against the roof of your mouth, will create a higher pitch. It puts more pressure on these reeds. As you finish that word, that yuck, your jaw drops and the call goes from that high pitch to the low pitch, which creates the yelp of a hen. And a more, I guess, complete yelp sounds like this. And you'll have to modify that word chick or chuck and to get those really clean sounds like that. But it's the more pressure you place on the call, the higher the pitch. And this particular call has got some cuts in that top reed. So as I'm pushing my tongue up against that, that call, I'm engaging those top reeds, which is why it sounded kind of shattery or raspy. But that creates the realism in the call as well. So again, some basic hen yelps on a mouth call sounds like this. Now, to make some of those sounds, like the purr and the cluck, to purr, you simply press your tongue against the reed, just like you're gonna make the CH for the yelp sound, and you either can like flutter your tongue, you can purr like a cat, or you can flutter your lips. I prefer to do the purr like a cat. Some people can't do that with the back of my throat, but again, you can roll your lips, you can roll your tongue, or you can do that purr like a cat sound. So just practice and see what's comfortable for you. And then a cluck is really just a very sharpened yelp. So again, back to the high-low sound. You just shorten that up front and back. And then just basically saying the word chick or chuck, but like really quick. And that's what gets you that cluck sound. And that sounds like this. I'll do the yelp first, and I'll transition into a cluck. Just a very soft call. That turkey's just waking up on the roost. And then once she's ready to kind of fly down out of the tree, the sound is much more aggressive. And a lot of times turkey hunters will bring a turkey wing with them or take their hat off, and they'll flap it against their legs so it sounds like the wing's actually flapping to add that extra layer of realism. I'll use my hat a lot of times, and a lot of times a turkey will gobble just at the hat flapping. But this is what a fly down cackle sounds like. So it's usually a tree call into that fly down cackle, so much more aggressive. And if you had your hat while you're doing those aggressive cuts in that cackle, you flap your hat, and it makes the sound of those turkey wings just to add that extra layer of realism. And there's times in the woods, if you do that and the tom's close by, he'll immediately pitch down out of the tree where he's at, right to where he heard that sound come from, and it could be a really quick hunt in the morning. But generally, turkeys, once they've flown down, they do their what I call their normal daily vocalizations, right? So they're yelping. They're a very social bird, so they're always keeping in touch with each other. So lots of yelping, which sounds like this. And they'll mix in some clucks and some cuts. And usually they'll start a conversation with a tom if he's gobbling in response to that. Now, in nature, the tom, he struts and he gobbles to attract hens to him. So usually that tom will gobble and that hen will go to that tom. Now, what we're trying to do as turkey hunters is reverse nature, right? You're trying to get that tom to kind of break what Mother Nature told him to do or wired him to do and come into that hen call. Now, when a turkey is just contently feeding through the woods. So a lot of times you'll hear turkeys scratching because they'll use their feet and they'll scratch the leaves away to expose whatever's below the leaves, whether that's bugs or seeds or whatever it may be. But they'll scratch, and as they're walking through the woods kind of scratching and feeding, they'll do what's called a purr sound, and that sounds like this. I'll mix in some clucks with that. Just very content sounds, very subtle sounds. And that's just telling the turkeys around them that she's very relaxed, very calm. So if you make those sounds, like I said, the turkeys that are coming in or listening to you will think that there's contented hens over there that are just feeding. And it adds realism also if you just stick your fingers and just scratching the leaves next to you. It'll sound just like a turkey that's actually feeding through the woods. Now there's another type of purr that's called the fighting purr. So when two turkeys are fighting over a hen, or two hens are fighting or whatever, you get much more aggressive sounds. And that nice little subtle, calm and content purr turns into a much more aggressive sound. And a lot of times what we talked about using your hand to control the sound. If you have two turkeys that are in a fight, what you're trying to do when you do a fighting purr on a mouth call is try to sound like multiple turkeys. So I'll do that a lot of times where I'll turn my head this way and then I'll cut my hand that way to sound like those two turkeys in a fight. That sounds like this. And you can also add that hat we talked about for the fly down cackle, because turkeys, when they fight, they're ruthless. They'll legs kicked out, toms will use their spurs to hit the other bird, flapping their wings, they're pecking each other's heads. So it's really aggressive and they're flapping all over the place. So sometimes that hat flapping in the middle of that fighting purr sequence can add that other layer of realism as well. But there's a lot you can do on a mouth call. And like what I would say is from the range of sounds you can make, you can go super quiet like that tree call that we did at the beginning, to real aggressive like that fly down cackle and the cutting, the fighting purr. Like you just have a wide range of sounds you can do. And once you've got it perfected, you can do that all without taking your hands off your shotgun. And that just, again, gives you that extra edge in the field when you're trying to close a distance on a big old tom. When you come into our store to gear up for this spring's turkey season, I'd recommend picking up the Redhead Ozark Bottoms 3-pack of mouth calls, which includes a bat wing style call, a V-cut call, and also that 3-reed cutter, which is my personal favorite call. And having some different sounds to throw at that turkey always makes a big, big difference. So one thing that's very important when you're mouth calling turkeys is when you use a call, this saliva from your mouth will get in between the reeds, and if that call sits for an extended period of time, those reeds will stick together. So if you take that call out for the first time, you got that turkey roosted, you're close, you're making your first sounds of the day, they're not gonna sound right because those reeds, again, are stuck together. So it's important that you'll run that call like in the truck on the way to the woods every morning, loosen up those reeds. A lot of people will, after the hunt, they'll put something in between the reeds to separate them so that to prevent those reeds from sticking together. But it's just really important that knowing that those reeds are probably going to be dried together, that you need to take the time to warm up and use that call to loosen those reeds and break them apart to get the sound that you want out of your mouth call.